Hello, this is James with Kingdom Fathers, and this video is going to be a little bit different than some of the others that we've done. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed and in the effort to tell you a little bit more about the purpose of the channel, about myself and some background information. Could be multiple videos, two or three, depending on the content and how this progresses. But I wanted to give some background to why this channel was started, where some of my life experiences and how I got to where I'm at and how we plan to add value to parents' homes, to specifically fathers' home, and utilize a lot of the talents that God has given us that we can be able to reach more and more people with this message and with hope. Knowing what our desire is in life, whether it be materialistic or is it spiritual, is it to get to a certain place in life or to just be here? And we find that a lot of just because of our environment, a lot of our families, the fathers, they get stuck in a routine and a rut, and it's in a downward spiral sometimes. So being able to recognize that and want to do better and want to move your family in a positive direction moving forward is what we want to help encourage fathers to do. Have you ever felt like that your life and where you're at right now and the way that things have been working out for you, they just aren't living up to what you expected? Like you're not doing your full potential as a father, as a leader of the home. A lot of men feel that way. So, first of all, don't feel like you're alone because there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of fathers out there that are in that shape, but many of them don't recognize that they're there. They are just going through the motions of life. They start out in their 20s, into their 30s, into their 40s, and continue on in a day to day operation that is consuming more content during the day, social media stuff, maybe buying into a lot of the pleasures of life, whether it be boats or side by sides, all these different things that distract us from the true meaning and why we're here. And a lot of times our families get left behind by doing that. Our children don't get the attention they need and they find attention somewhere else. Maybe our spouses, they don't get the attention they need and they find attention somewhere else. And it's our job as fathers to focus on that, to put their needs first, specifically their spiritual needs and their physical needs, but also to be there present. And that doesn't always mean financially. And I think that as more fathers understand this and they focus back on raising their family in an environment that is always beneficial to them, to their family, to their children, we're going to see our society and our country get turned around really fast. And that's part of the movement we want behind Kingdom Fathers. I feel like that a lot of talents that I've had and been blessed with for the last 20 or 30 years, in my mind, it's a personal opinion, I've squandered a lot of that because I have been, like most people starting a YouTube channel, they're scared to get behind the camera like this and wondering what will people think? And if somebody sees it, what will they think? At some point, though, we have to get past that thought and realize that if there's something that we have that we've been blessed with that we can share with the next generation, that we can share with someone right next to us, our neighbors, or even through this, we can reach hundreds of thousands of people potentially. That is more important than what others may think. There's always going to be naysayers, bad comments. It's going to be left, people that don't understand, but that's not who I'm looking for. I'm looking for the father who is burnt out. I'm looking for the one who is had it up to here with all of the world's trouble and can't figure out where to go next and wants clarity. I was that person. And I'm coming to you with advice. I want to mentor. I want to coach. I want to help. And by going and reviewing this, I'm hoping that these videos, especially this one and the next one or two, will really shine more of a light on that and you can connect with it. So I hope if you find this video and you've gotten this far that you'll subscribe, that you will like our channel. There's a lot more content coming that has to do with faith, family, freedom, fitness, you name it. If it starts with an F, we're going to talk about it. And it's all presented in a New Testament Christian format that is putting God first in everything that we do and putting that forth so that anybody that we talk to can know that they can see Christ in us. So I hope that you can follow along and we'll get some value out of this. And if there's anything that you have question about or you want to know more about that you'd like to see me do a live video about, I'm always wanting to know and learn more about what my target audience wants. Drop a comment below, let me know, and that'll give me some room to improve. And if there's something in here that you may not understand and you want defined or want clarity on, I can do videos on that as well. But I find that most men go through life, and I'm 48 years old. I've had a lot of hard decisions I've had to make. I've had to go through a lot of hard times, maybe not as hard as and difficult as some, but a lot more than others. And I think that's what makes our whole path of life unique. And the struggles that we have is that we are unique to ourselves, but at the same time, we're not alone. Everybody in families have struggles. They have problems at home and they don't know how to solve them. And they usually are rooted in our decision making, rooted in sin or rooted in our priorities. And when we realize those, especially as fathers, that we need to maybe adjust and we can humble ourselves enough to say, okay, I'm not right about this. And I think there's a better way to do it. And it's going to lead to happiness in my home, going to lead to happiness with my children. That is what we need to focus on. And it's more about not surviving, but leading. If we do that more, I think we will see a huge turnaround. So for me, I worked in a chemical facility for over 20 years and decided that I realized that the culture was shifting and that there was a lot of changes going on within the company weren't there 20 years prior. And my children were growing up before my eyes. I was putting in 70 hours a week. In this position, I was a plant supervisor, so I had 48 direct reports that were on a 12-hour rotating schedule. And I was the main contact day, night, weekend, vacation. It didn't matter. 360 days a year. We were only closed down 5 days a year, a couple for each major holiday. But other than that, we were in a facility that was flammable, that was chemical, and was under pressure a lot of times. And the operators had questions, they had issues, and they had problems, and not just with the process, but with teams. All the dynamics that come with rotating shifts and night shift, all those things, day shift. I was the one who got the call. I was the one who had to filter that out. So there's good and bad. I've got a lot of experience on problem solving, working under pressure, working under difficult situations, coaching, mentoring, giving performance appraisals to all 48 employees at least once a year. New employees got them 30, 60, 90 day. So a lot of months I was done 10 to 15 appraisals. And what that included was helping operators improve daily to be better on their job and as individuals tomorrow better than they are today and helping them get to that milestone. So by doing that was a continual improvement. And when I did it on an individual basis, then the entire team would improve because they had a better outlook on life. They had goals set that they were trying to achieve. They were hitting targets and metrics, not just in production, but in life. And that correlated into building strong teams. And it correlated into less phone calls for me because they were more trained, more confident. So I learned a lot. But as the company shifted, I understood that I was just a number. And more that set in, and my children were growing up fast. I realized that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. There were many men there and women who had been there for 40 years and were retiring. I just couldn't see myself doing that and putting forth that much effort and that much time into a job, and my children and family were being traded out and neglected for a paycheck. So I walked away from that. We did a lot of things. We downsized. My wife is a registered nurse, and we made a decision. How are we going to get from this lifestyle to a more simple lifestyle? And it took a lot of planning, a lot of prayer, and we decided that we sold a lot of our material items. We downsized vehicles. We prepared the house. We did a lot of painting. We did landscaping. We did all the things you would do to get the home ready. And we put the home on the market after planning and preparation for over 9 months. It sold in 2 days. It's under contract. And this was before the big housing boom. So it was amazing. And the closing date, I had already done my resignation letter that I was going to give to a 20-year career. And it scared me to death because I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew that it wasn't going to be that. And I put my faith in that God was going to provide and that it would all work out. I just knew that I wanted to spend time growing closer to God and closer to my family. I wanted to spend that time that God had given me every morning to be with my children. And we had already started homeschooling the two youngest. The two older ones, one is already, at this point, had already graduated. The other one was going to be a senior. So our two younger children of 4 were being homeschooled. And I realized the value of instilling in them the time each day that was going to be the next generation. You're not just raising your children, you're raising future husbands, future wives. You're raising future leaders in our community and in the church. And that's so important because it's our role. That's the responsibility. It's a big burden in some ways, a huge task for a father to do that, but it's been a blessing, and it should be for you as well, that you have been tasked with that the guidance that you give your family, your children, is going to echo into eternity, into the next generation. And you literally get to change and direct your family tree. So I think those things, as you can pause and get away from all the worldly distractions and the things that are pulling us away, and really think about that. What is my intent in life? Why has God put me where I am, and where am I supposed to be heading? Because I can tell you in his word, he tells you where that is that we were made in his image, that he has put us here, that his son died on the cross for us, and that he wants to spend eternity with us. But it's our choice. We are free moral agents, and we get to make that choice. We get to decide if we want to obey and follow him, or if we're more content with following worldly pleasures and the things of this life. And I can promise you, when you decide to change, have that shift of mind, and you go towards reading your Bible, following God, knowing what he wants from you, and setting aside a lot of these man-made beliefs, that's when your life really starts getting traction. You really start understanding with clarity what your purpose is. And it allows you to do things like walk away from a 20-year career. Something that when people would ask me, you may be like this. What do you do for a living? You go to your son's birthday party and you meet other parents, and some guy walks up to you and shakes your hand and introduces himself. And the first question typically is, what do you do? And always was, I told my name and my title and what I did, and that was my identity. Like I got wrapped up in, that was who I was. And I think we all do that to some extent because we are in a certain position for so long that we look at that as that's who we are. And then when you leave that, you lose who you are for a little while. And God never meant for us to be like that. We should always know who we are, and we should instill that in our children on a daily basis, that it doesn't wrap around a job, a paycheck, or material items. And when we do that, we instill more character in our children, that they have a mind that is focused on their priorities, not on the material items. So I want to think about a couple of things that when I left that job and I walked away from it, it led me up to a point where I didn't know what I was going to do. Like we knew we was going to start something or do something on our own, but I had no idea it would be what we're doing today. And we own a service business and a cleaning business. And we have done that now for 8 years since leaving. We have been homeschooling our children. My children have got to go to jobs. They've got to see us talk to clients. They've got to experience what it's like to own a company, to build a company, to talk to clients, to work through the hardships, to enjoy the rewards of all that hard work. They have seen it firsthand. You can't get that in public school. You can't get that from working a 70-hour a week job. It's hard to understand giving up $100,000+ a year job with all the benefits to walk away from something that you have no idea what the value is. Like, how's it going to pay for things? How are you going to pay for things? What is it going to pay you back? But when you take a leap of faith like this and you put your priorities right and you get clarity on what you want, big things can happen. That's when you really start growing as an individual. That's when you really start leading your family. That's when you can really start to grow as an individual, as a man, as a father. There's a lot of spiritual conflicts that go on every day. And you may know this, you may see it, you may feel it and not recognize it. But when we wake up in the morning, we decide what we're going to wear. We're going to decide whether we're going to work or not. We're going to decide how we're going to get to work, what we eat. We may not realize that, but a lot of the decisions we make each day, even the small ones, they're actually judging us, and we're setting our priorities based on what that day's bringing. And if we do that without any planning, without any priorities being set, we end up letting the world control us and dictate what we want out of life instead of what we want out of life and what God has intended for us. So I think that there is a lot of realization in that. And how do you get to there? How do you, when you're up to here in debt and frustration, and I see just this past week somebody that I worked with, and my first comment, because I'm in a spot in my life where everything is really going well because my viewpoint, my priorities have changed. And when I say, hey, good morning, how's it going? Another day, another dollar, whatever the comments are, they have had it up to here. They were where I was, but they haven't broke loose to say they're not sick and tired of being sick and tired. When you get to that point, you don't care if you have to sell everything, you have to get out of debt so that you get some clarity and happiness and you reset. Sometimes in life we need that. Some people go through bankruptcy. Some people go through even worse, a lot of other things, but they get a reset. And what do they do with that reset? Is it all materialistic, or do they focus back on where are they going to go and spend eternity? What matters most in life? So for me, that was a big turning point, is being able to leave that job, even not knowing what we were doing, but knowing I wanted to have clarity. If we back up even a few more years before that, where this whole process started and getting clarity is, I knew my children needed more, but I didn't know how to give it to them. I didn't know the path to get on. I had an idea of what my point B was, and I knew where A was because I was in it, but I couldn't see that destination because of all of the chaos, because of drama in my family, because of the world pulling at me and all of the distractions. It was almost numbing. And do you feel that way? Have you ever felt that way? Or maybe you feel that way right now. Is that because of all the distractions and all the things going on in our life every day, every week, we just get in a rut and we do it repetitively. And it's insanity. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome and getting the same outcome. And we do that. I did that. But by getting clarity, spiritual clarity, I wanted to know where I was going, how I was going to get there, and how do I take my wife and children with me? And I'm talking about to heaven, because that's the biggest gift that God has given us, is that we get an opportunity to experience life after this one. Everything else is just materialistic, right? James says we are here for a moment and we are vapor. We disappear. And we know that there are challenges and trials in this life, and sometimes we can't make sense of them. But when we focus on what matters most and we downsize, we remove those distractions and get clarity as fathers, we're able to lead in a whole nother fashion. So back up about to now 13 years, I was in a position where I wanted to lead my family. I wanted clarity. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And my family needed to go and they needed more spiritual guidance and really needed someone to tell me what that was because I've grown up moving all over the world as a kid. I've lived in Europe and seen a lot of the European countries. We lived in multiple places throughout the United States growing up, and I have a wide background religiously speaking. It's very unique, but maybe more people than have this than not. And I'm going to be really honest and sincere in this part of the story. So it's about 21 minutes in. I hope you're still with me. If you're not, pause it, come back because this is where it gets good. Many people have religious backgrounds, they have different thought processes, and I was probably no different than that. And maybe you don't have any spiritual background. Maybe you are struggling to even believe in God. That's okay right now because I want you to hear this message. I was raised where growing up, I had a grandmother who was a member of the Baptist church. I had aunts on my father's side that were devout Catholics. So we went to Catholic weddings and dinners and whatnot that were a different experience. Multiple different types of quote Christian churches, community and thereof growing up, like all kinds of different vacation Bible schools and everything was different. They taught different things, they practiced different things. And I noticed that as a young kid and even as a young teenager, that it was different. And when we lived overseas, we were for a short time in like a four square Pentecostal type of church, which was really different for the way I was raised because we would be gone for 5 hours and have to pack a sack lunch and seen a lot of people doing a lot of weird different things that I'd never seen before. My point is I had a wide background religiously. And as I got older, about the age I was around 16, my mom and dad got a divorce. And that split set me on a trajectory that I got further and further away from God. And I didn't want much to do with any religion. And if I did have that thought during the day, I like to go to a visit for Christmas or for Easter. And I would get invites. But to be honest, I didn't know where to start. They were every time I traveled the world and all over the country, there was a different denomination and a different church of some man-made creation on every corner. And they all practiced something different and they all were confusing. And I just got farther away until 13 years ago, where I went to my father-in-law and realized I needed to learn more and to get closer to God. And there was a time when we just did the bare minimum in life. And you've probably been there. I was at that point, but I knew that I needed to change. I knew that I needed to get right with God and learn more. So I'm going to leave that for another video. That'll be the second part of my actual conversion and how that came about and what I learned from that and where it's put me in life because it's a little bit unique. But I want that for other men. I want clarity. I want truth. And you will only find truth if you are a truth seeker because it's not going to come to you otherwise. If you're not looking for truth and you're not asking questions and digging and doing the deep work, it won't come to you. It won't be revealed. It's not going to show itself. And sometimes it's hard to accept the truth. It's hard to realize that things you were taught growing up, things that you were educated in school, that someone could lie to you, that someone could tell you something that wasn't good for you. And the truth is, it happens very frequently. And now at 48 years old, I have dug so many deep holes and digging and doing my own research, not just spiritually, but with life and business and all of these things that's got me to where I'm at. And it is an eye opener, an awakening to understand that the things we were taught growing up and the way that we've been trained to live our lives to be just here and then consume and then die, that's not what we are here for. So there's a lot of different ways that you get distracted and all of them that come from a worldly standard, they are going to entrap you. They're going to make you a slave to something, a slave to a job, a paycheck, a slave to pay that boat off. And a lot of times they lead to further away we get from God. They lead to heartache because of our choices, because of sin, because of our mindset and where we're at in our life. That really puts a separation on us from God. And we can't get back there without knowing what his will is. So part of Kingdom Fathers is that foundational root, looking for fathers that are truth seekers, that want to lead their family, that want to get past the chaos and the drama that's in their life, that's got them to where they're at. And they know that they're full of potential. They know that they can do better. They know that they can be of more value and more presence to their family, that they, in turn, the more that they give to others as in a service, that they will be blessed abundantly. Because that shift of mind is crucial into getting to what we really want in life. And sometimes men just get stuck. And maybe it's a video like this that will break you out of that and say, you know what? I am capable of more, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know. I'm scared. I don't want to leave my comfort. And that's okay too. Not everybody's cut out for this. Not everybody's cut out to be that world-class leader, servant heart. But it can be if you want it. If you want to humbly say, I want to do better. I want to lead my family. I want to do better. I want to know better and do better. Those things build strong families. They build it with strength, with discipline, with faith, all things that are biblical principles. If we look at the depth of what I want to instill into men, is it's not just a Bible principle of leading your family. It's about finance. It's about business building. It's about working hard for the kingdom and being an example to others, not just in your family. I've had several people, honestly, countless people, even in the last little bit, they meet our two youngest children that we've homeschooled, and we've put a lot of time in since learning this as a father and in being a Christian. And we get compliments from strangers about how well mannered they are and how they present themselves and how they're able to carry on conversations. And they all recognize a difference in how they perceive themselves, how they carry themselves. My son is 16, but he's 6'4" and like 285 pounds of muscle, a lot bigger than dad. But when he walks in a room, he carries a presence, even as a young man. My daughters, they do the same. It's because of the time and value. We reset our priorities and made them our priority, because at the end of the day, I want to get to heaven and I want to take as many people with me as I can, starting with my family. Those souls, those kids, those children that we have, they're the only things you get to take with you to heaven. And if you don't get it right as the parent, you're not going to end up taking them to heaven with you. That's why this is so important. And to get there, you think, how do I get clarity? Like, it's so confusing and there's so much going on. A lot of it has to do with our daily actions that we take, the priorities we set, the time that we spend planning out what our attack is for life, and getting that mindset. I am in the physical Egypt or spiritual Egypt, and I want to get to Canaan. I know that I'm down here in Egypt, but I know I'm capable of so much more. And I'm looking to Canaan land, right? The best analogy I can think of is that we know where we're at and we know where we want to be. We know where we want our family to be. So it's almost a battle cry that we as men, we need to stand up. We need to quit being passive. We need to quit. At some point in life, we're always, here recently especially, we're always told to sit down, shut up, don't have a comment. And sometimes rightfully, maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe it's not kind. But as men, especially men leading families, if we see something that is not correct, not legal, not biblical, we need to say something and we need to stand up. We need to stand up and have integrity. So That's the first part of the video. I want to tell you a little bit of background about me and about where this channel is going, what I want to offer. But in the next video, I'm going to go into a little bit more about the conversion. How did I become a New Testament Christian? What does it mean to be a New Testament Christian? Have you ever heard of obeying the gospel? All of these things were a turning point in my life to get me focused on where we're at today and how we can help mentor and coach other fathers to do the same. Because I can see all around me the confusion, the daily disappointment, the heartache, the torment that comes from continuing in that rat race, in that cycle, and not being able to break away and break out of it and not have clarity. And I hate to see a lot of young men that are just starting their families, that are just getting married. They're consumed with content, maybe gaming, maybe in some people's mind, they may look at these individuals and families and say they're just lazy, or they just have priorities that don't align with a hard work ethic, or it could be a number of things. But I don't know that's truly the problem. The problem starts at the heart. What is their intent? What gives them passion? Do they understand where they come from and where they're going? Because that's been another lie that we've been told, is that we are just here for a joyride and then life is over. We're a speck of dust on a planet spinning through space and you don't mean anything. God's word tells us a totally different story. We are the center of the universe. He gave us a soul and that we were made in his image and we are important. And maybe you need to hear that. You need your children to hear that, because if you don't tell them, the world will. If you don't fill that void with God's presence, the world and the devil, he will fill that for you. And the end result is going to be heartache and pain and suffering because of the decisions they're making. But if you want to lead and you want a clear picture and you want to get a good path to get to Canaan, this is the channel. This is where you need to be. And we're going to have more content like this. Hope you'll like, subscribe, follow, share it. If you know of other men that may need this content, that may need to hear it, share it with them. If you would, leave a comment below. Give me some feedback, questions, comments, concerns. We would really appreciate it. It helps us to build more content to serve you better and to help you get from your point A to your point B. What is your Egypt to Canaan? Have a great, blessed day.